everybody, and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles, and on this episode, we're doing It Came From the Network. The topic of this It Came From the Network: World Class Championship Wrestling from November 2nd, 1985, elsewise marked on Peacock as Season 4, Episode 44. And this one comes as a recommendation from our friend Bucky749, the American Samurai. We'll talk about why he recommended it here when we get to that point. Let's jump right in. First match of the evening, or first match of the show. Oh, and we do grade everything on a 1 to 5 scale, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. First match of the card, we have Ravishing Rick Rude versus Tommy Montana. Not Tony, Tommy. This was a pretty good match, and commentary was talking, they mentioned that it was Rick Rude's debut, but they also mentioned him previously talking about bringing Percy Pringle in. So I don't know, I didn't go back and watch the week before this to see if he had been there, or a couple of weeks before to see if he'd actually been there before this. It was a good match. Rick Rude's one of the better wrestlers of the 1980s. Definitely, you could see where he was starting to get where he was, he had a fantastic physique. The interesting thing, and Rude picks up the win here, he finishes the match with the DDT. And even in Rick Rude's younger years, I didn't ever remember him using a DDT. So this was very interesting to see him use that as a finisher. Afterwards, we get a little interview. He talks about Percy Pringle possibly coming in, that Percy's dealing with some legal stuff in Atlanta. If you're not familiar, Percy Pringle is Paul Bearer. So that's pretty cool. This is a world-class show prior to Percy Pringle being there. Either Rick Rude's wrestling debut or very early in his world-class run. I'm giving this a 4. There's probably not too many guys in the 80s that I'd rather watch than Rick Rude. Now, coming from that, our next match, another Rick Mccord versus Hollywood John Tatum, who's escorted to the ring by Missy Hyatt. Couple things stood out to me here. Both of them had the bleach blonde hair and black trunks. The only way, even with the grainy video, and I was trying to transport myself back into the 80s and watching this on over antenna television, if they didn't have different boots and their faces weren't dissimilar, watching it on a 19-inch TV with a little bit of fuzz to it, you may have got a little confused at the time. This was solid. It was a little bit more indicative of the world-class style, which was a little bit slower paced than some of the other territories at the time. John Tatum is a lot better than what we've seen here. This is a good match, don't get me wrong, it's not a bad match. Hollywood John Tatum, I think, goes on to become a better wrestler. Overall, this was good, though. Not quite as good as the first match. Not as good as the next. Tatum picks up the win. I'm going to give this a 3. Then our main event is actually coming from the Cotton Bowl. And it's this is the reason why the American Samurai picked this. Chris Adams and Gino Hernandez versus Kevin and Carrie von Erich in a hair match. The losing team gets their head shaved. He didn't pick it for those reasons. The reason that he mentioned was Lance von Erich's debut. And while this isn't his in-ring debut, this is the debut of the Lance von Erich character. They had some luminaries around the ring, other wrestlers, referees, to kind of keep anybody from running away from the match, and Lance von Erich is announced here. This was a really solid match. Gino Hernandez and Chris Adams are a highly underrated team. Kevin is my favorite of the Von Erich clan. Carrie was the best looking of them. Kevin, I think, was the best wrestler. David was the best all-around package. And Chris and Mike, they tried. I'm not going to talk too badly about them because we know the tragedy that surrounds the family. but they tried. They were given a great effort. This was a really, really solid match. We seen a lot of plunder get involved, chairs, and it wasn't folding chairs. It was like dining room table chairs being used. Gino and Chris Adams started the powder, and Gino hits Chris Adams in the face, or Chris Adams hits Gino with the powder. That's how we get to the win. The Von Erichs pick up the win here. Then we go to the head shaving, which is the most entertaining part, as Chris Adams and Gino Hernandez try to weasel their way out. They struggle all the way through. Kind of felt a little bit weird because I thought at one point while Gino was being held down, he was shaking his head as they're trying to cut his hair. I'm like, man, if you're not going to be safe, they're going to cut your ear off. And it just was one of those things. It made for a great visual. It made it really believable. This was a fantastic tag team match. And I guarantee if I would have watched this entire feud, this would have been a fantastic blow-off. I'm giving this a 5. Afterwards, we see the heavy involvement of Lance Von Erich. He's one of the people holding, especially Gino, down. He gets a chance to help cut the hair. So do all the faces: Iceman King Parsons, Chris Von Erich, a couple of the other faces there. They all take a chance to cut each of their hair. This was a good way to end the show. Like I said, I'm giving a 5. 4 of the absolute best that World Class ever produced. And just a shining example of what it could be at its height. Now, with that being said, next week I'm probably going to revisit World Class and go to Lance's actual first match in World Class. Hopefully it's one that's a televised. I'm going to go to his first televised match. Whether that be his first actual match there or the first match they show on TV. Because I kind of want to get another reaction to him. The crowd didn't turn on him here, but we all know that this is one of the worst gimmicks that they tried. This, the Fritz Von Erich heart attack angle, both were pretty bad. So I want to go to his actual debut in-studio match at the Sportatorium, see what that ends up being like. Overall, I'm going to give this show a 4. Rather enjoyable, rather fun. I liked it. You got Rick Rude, you got Hernandez and Adams, Rick Mccord and John Tatum, the two of the better of the Von Erich clan. Just a good show. A solid overall effort. Like I said, I'm going to go try and find Lance's first actual match on TV. First televised match. Wow, I don't know why that was so hard to say. Anyway, if you made it this far, please hit that like button, share, subscribe if you haven't, and if you made it all the way to the end, let's put LVE for Lance Von Erich. Show the guy a little bit of love. I know he's one of the most universally hated gimmicks in the history of at least World Class, if not all of wrestling. I don't think it's his fault. He had a tremendous look. From everything I've ever seen of him, he was a pretty decent wrestler. I mean, he wasn't out of place. He just had the stink of being a fake Von Erich and kind of ruined the believability with their crowd. Like I said, overall giving it a 4. With all that being said, my name is George Coles, and this has been another It Came From the Network.